You've tuned in to chipsgrooveradio with your hosts, Mike and John.
Did you guys rip and tear through this soundtrack today? How many times have you listened, Jesse?
Today?
Well, no. Leading up to today.
I would say I've probably listened through it once a day for the last 2 or 3 days, and I think I might have listened to it twice yesterday. Yeah,
Nice.
I think so.
It's pretty hefty too.
Well,
that is dedication.
Well, yeah, it is. It's pretty long. Yeah, and but I had a lot of time in the car, like I said. So, and the weather was nice, so no better way to enjoy your time driving in the late spring than to have your windows down and blaring obnoxious music that people look at you and wonder about.
Obnoxiously amazing.
Amazing.
And you're just daydreaming, ripping demon heads off.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that is today's game, Doom for 2016, the soft reboot of the series. But before we talk about that, we had discussed talking a little bit about the Square Enix debacle they've found themselves in, which is rather unfortunate. They are
Tell me about it.
realizing that going with the console exclusive formula is just not working for them anymore because capitalism and they're not making enough money. Who could have projected that? Yeah, I think this is kind of a no-brainer and they're just figuring it out, but the landscape is not quite what it was in the early 90s. So I don't know how you guys feel about that, but it just seems like they're a little late to the game on this one.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. It's funny because one of my good friends who plays some of the tabletop games with me came over to my place, I don't know, probably like 2 months ago for just like a hobby day. We just kind of hung out, painted some models together and chit-chatted. Yeah. And we're both huge Final Fantasy fans. Like we could probably do like a trivia game about Final Fantasy at this point. And, we were talking about all of our favorite games, and I don't really know what kickstarted the conversation, but then I told him that I was in the midst of playing Final Fantasy 16, and he's like, "Oh, which one is that?" Oh wait, it's the one that you like turn into the summons in, right? And I'm like, "Yeah, you haven't played it?" And he's like, "Oh no, I have an Xbox, so I can't." I was like, "It's not on," right. And he doesn't have a gaming PC. Like, he has a console. I don't think that there are that many people who are going to go out of their way to buy an Xbox and a Switch and a PlayStation and also have a gaming PC so that whatever exclusive comes out on one of those different platforms, they're going to be able to play regardless. And here's this guy sitting across the table from me who's arguably as big a Final Fantasy fan as me, has trivia in his head all the way back to like the first games, has really like oddball esoteric stuff stored in his hard drive, and can't play the newest game in the series. And I'm trying to tell him, I'm like, holy shit, Brandon, I can't believe it. This game's amazing. Like, you have never played it? Do you want to go upstairs and play right now? Because we can.
We will drop what we're doing right now.
Yeah. And like, I think that studios banking on getting a significant cash injection from Sony or from Microsoft or from whatever to get an exclusive for an indeterminate amount of time, which, I mean, at this point, fucking Final Fantasy 16 should have been out on other platforms aside from PC.
I think it was at least a year. Yeah. I think year was the mark. So I think they have like less than a month before it's supposed to come out on another console. And I'm like, I'll be honest, I'm one of the people who saved up for a PlayStation 5 simply to play the Final Fantasies because the 7 remake was coming out, and I'm like, well, they're never going to release that. I'm never going to be able to play it. And then 16 is a console exclusive. So I was like, God damn it. So yeah, I will say the majority of my console gaming is Xbox. I don't care about console wars. I think they both put out fine products. I think it's, at this point, you need, with so much competition, games are virtually everywhere now.
Yeah.
So if they're not going to play your game, they're going to play something else. So you cannot bank on
No.
On console exclusives, it just seems like a no-brainer.
I think most people have gotten to the point where, a lot of people have gotten to the point where they've bought at least a decent computer that can run many of the games that are coming out exclusively on other platforms. And games tend to run, at least maybe not the whatever quadruple A games that Ubisoft puts out, but some of the other games like Final Fantasy probably runs decently on a semi-budget gaming PC. So and it's much more versatile than owning, shelling up basically the same amount of money for a PlayStation if you already have an Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and taking a look at cost of entry into the PC gaming market, it is coming down. The price of GPUs is relatively stabilized, and it's not like you need to get a crazy like 4090 to play basically anything on the market. Like that's really just for bragging rights, and that's pretty much it. So they're just becoming so much more popular, especially with the boom in streaming, and it's pretty tough to stream professionally if you just have a console. So they're just becoming a lot more accessible. Especially with the quality of like the pre-builts, that at least like not having stuff come out on PC at the same time is definitely gonna cannibalize a little bit of your audience. And I mean, you look at some other stuff that Square Enix has done, like Final Fantasy 14. Now, granted, it's an MMO, so there are certain difficulties with having platform exclusives there. You don't want to tell people that this expansion is going to come out 2 weeks earlier for this platform than for other ones. The game survives on subscriptions. Right, exactly. But, Square Enix has in the past gone to the Final Fantasy 14 development team and talked about platform exclusives, and Yoshi P and that team just said flat out, like, no, it's not going to happen, because they know that if they did that, they would lose a significant portion of their subscriber base, either immediately or over time. You just can't do it.
Yeah. It blows my mind just that people are still really putting effort into this, because, I mean, it made sense when it was Nintendo and Sega, and you were getting two completely different games, or like for the base Microsoft titles and the base Sony games, The Last of Us is a Sony title, blah, blah, blah. You're going to get console exclusives in that respect, but not for games that should be available to everyone.
Yeah.
Well, and Xboxes and PlayStations are essentially gaming PCs at this point. So
absolutely,
there's no coding reason why they can't have cross-platform play. Only reason would be multiplayer for the most part, but that's already been a solved problem too, because there's so many cross-play games.
Cross-play.
Yeah. And I think that the days of like the platform wars or the console wars being really impactful are kind of past us. Like if you think about it, I was always a Nintendo kid. I had NES, SNES, N64, GameCube. Like I've owned every iteration of the Nintendo platforms, except I think for the Wii U. I never had one of those for my whole life. And when I was a kid and, Sega came out, I asked my parents if I could have one, and they were like, no, you have a Nintendo. You don't need another one.
Yeah.
So like that was a whole different generation, like I never owned a Sega. I never owned a PlayStation 1 or 2 until I married my wife and moved in, and she still had a PS2 kicking around. It wasn't until she bought me a PS3 in like her college days that I owned anything aside from a Nintendo console. So now that people like you and me, and we've grown, we've matured, we have buying power. I think that there's a lot more accessibility for alternate platforms. But to this day, like I've never owned an Xbox. I've never played any of the Xbox exclusive games. I've never played Halo, Gears of War. I just haven't.
And that's okay.
And I don't feel like I miss it. That's the thing. I don't feel like I miss it because there is so much content on the market.
Yeah.
There's always something else to play.
Yeah, and that's why this whole console exclusive thing with Square Enix really just took me for a loop when it was before the PlayStation 5 came out. They announced Final Fantasy 16 and it's going to be PS5 only. And that blew my mind because there's so much on the market right now. It's like, if people can't readily get to your game, they're going to move on to something else. And I think it started, at least the most recent console exclusive thing with Square was like we're gonna re-release Final Fantasy VII as a remake. It came out on PlayStation before. We're gonna keep that going and re-release it only on PlayStation 5 right now. That feels like that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
And then it kind of leaked over into their other AAA titles. And I'm like, you guys are shooting yourselves in the foot. And it really bothers me because these guys have come to the brink before. You know, everyone knows the Squaresoft's crash after Spirits Within.
Yeah.
They had to be bailed out, and that's when they merged with Enix. And I wish only the best for them because they've impacted my life in games a lot. You know, so when they're talking about development costs, you know, they're not making back what they put into these games, and they're the best games that they've got. You know, Final Fantasy, it's their flagship title. It's just a bummer. But I feel like they just did it to themselves.
And, you know, I have to have a little bit of like an old man yelling at clouds moment here. And I think that the console exclusivity thing is a big deal. But I think that this is just my interpretation, that Square Enix's, you know, financial difficulties are more indicative of other issues in the gaming industry. The console exclusivity thing is big. Like, obviously, they don't want to just cut out a portion of their target audience. But ultimately, even if it was a console exclusive just for PS5, well, just like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the game sold like crazy, but they said in their press release, it still didn't meet internal benchmarks. It's like, I mean, the game sold a bananas number of copies.
Exactly. What benchmarks are you talking about?
Right. So they overreported what they expected to get in terms of, you know, revenue from it, which is a whole problem all on its own. But I think that a lot of the issue with these big AAA games that take, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars to develop is it's coming up in direct opposition to things like the Game Pass mentality, where I just signed up for Game Pass and I have literally an unlimited number of games that I can play. I will never get through all of them. There's just not that much incentive to buy games at release anymore. There really isn't. I haven't bought Final Fantasy VII Rebirth yet. I'll get around to it. I'm still working on my second playthrough of 16, and then it's like, okay, well, Homeworld 3 just came out, plus Hades 2, plus I have this crazy backlog of like all these other games. Like, I don't need to get it because it's probably going to have weird glitchy stuff, and they're going to need to patch it, and it's not going to be released in a completed state anyway, like so many other games in the market these days. Like, there's just all these reasons not to buy a game at launch anymore. And I think that ultimately is the biggest problem.
I think the one of the big problems that's plaguing, especially console games, is the you know, Microsoft and Sony seem to be completely tone deaf when it comes to how people are consuming games. And, you know, you have obviously Square Enix, but you also have the Helldivers issue where Sony completely screwed over the development team for that because they wanted to implement mandatory PSN, and people already bought.
They had to roll that back.
And, people already bought the game in countries where they didn't have PlayStation Network, so they wouldn't be able to play Helldivers on a game they've already put like hours into. And then the whole Xbox thing where they said, "Oh, this is the type of games we need," and then they canned the whole studio that sold, you know, a beloved game and made a ton of money, and then they just canned the studio. So they just don't. I think they're not moving fast enough when you come up against indie developers like Larian. They're not really that indie, but you know, they're at least self-published. And in studios like that are a bit smaller, a bit tighter, but can put out more high quality games and aren't at the whims of these, you know, multi-billion-dollar conglomerates like Sony or Microsoft.
Absolutely.
To make them, you know, bottom line dollars.
Yeah, and you know, that's the other thing with Square Enix. We're not even going to talk about Doom today. We're just going to talk about all the things that we're sick about the gaming industry. The other problem with Square Enix is that, like, if you've sat down and looked at what their release schedule was for 2023, they put out so many games in 2023 for a big studio like that. I had heard of 2. Like, they are so bad at marketing. They take a shotgun approach to development. They've got all these compartmentalized development teams that don't necessarily talk to each other and learn from each other, which I guess is just kind of the way that a lot of Japanese and Chinese developing companies work. Like they're very compartmentalized in that way. They put a bunch of production or a bunch of investment into mobile development because I don't know if you know this, but mobile is the largest selling platform in gaming for 2023. It was 50% of all video game sales were on mobile,
insane.
which is disgusting. Disgusting.
It breaks my heart.
Well, that's where Hasbro got all their money, is from the Monopoly game that sells, microtransactions to children.
Literally the only thing keeping Hasbro afloat. Like, it's wild.
Casino game.
Don't even get me started on microtransactions. I refuse. Oh man, it's just a shame what the landscape has become, I think, and this is just part of it. And what's happening to Square is indicative of all these flaws we're talking about. And I think, like you said, they approach things with a shotgun and hope something sticks. They don't advertise. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, this is something Jon and I have talked about, where publishers need to start investing in a few games and putting their effort into making a product that is okay on day one and doesn't need a 60 gigabyte day one patch or things like that. Things that are compartmentalized in the sense that when the game releases, this is the game. We don't need 500-hour games with constant content coming in just to make people who can't ever be satisfied happy. Yeah. I think the capitalism aspect of always needing to put out as many products as possible to try and make it sucks, because that's just really just what's happening here. They're trying to put out so much stuff. They invest in nothing. And then they hope for the best for something. And then when nothing performs, they start firing everyone. It's like, if you'd set your sights a little lower and really make a push for something that you believe in, or you want to take a chance on, and deliver a product that people can get behind, maybe you wouldn't be firing people all over Europe and the United States and really ruining the way you look, especially to your investors.
The day one giant patch thing is so ridiculous. Like, it literally didn't happen until like the PS4 era, and like not even early in the PS4 era. Basically, once people had internet connections that were fast enough that they could support gigantic patches. Before that, like, you didn't have a choice. Your game had to work day one. And absolutely. I mean, like, PS2, PS3, early PS3, like, that was it. Like, if it didn't work at launch, you were going to have a major problem, because people wouldn't be able to patch the games because it just wasn't a function. Like, that was the Windows thing.
Absolutely. The example that screams to my mind right now was on Xbox 360 and PS3. They remastered Silent Hill 2 and 3, and they released them as a collection. And they were broken as fuck. You could not play the PlayStation 3 version when it came out. And it took them at least a week to get the patch out. And that's kind of how far we've come. Now it's almost immediate. Like, hey, the game releases at midnight. Oh, by the way, you have to download a patch that's the size of the game in order to get it playing. Right. But yeah, I mean, those types of patches were very few and far between, and they've only become worse with time.
Oh, so I was just gonna say, I maybe have a bit more rose-colored glasses when it comes to the state of gaming, because I feel like we're at a point where a lot of these smaller development studios that are putting out quality games on release, and ones that are being beholden, like Helldivers was, to Sony getting so much backlash for that, and games like Baldur's Gate 3 getting so much praise for the amount of development and polish that game had. I think maybe those AAA studios are going to start to fall by the wayside, and maybe we'll have some more independent published games out there. That's my hope, is that we're going to have more variety, and more polished games that come from people who actually care about developing and releasing.
Absolutely, I think we're seeing that, especially with Baldur's Gate 3. I have never played it. I intend to, But I think I told you, John, when we did that episode, I praised them for releasing a game that they wanted to release. It was polished, no DLC. Everyone, it's like game of the year quality because they believed in their product and because they took the time to do it. Mm-hmm. And it's at this moment where I'd like to also say whatever Nintendo's doing is good, because you can't tell me the last time you had to patch one of their games. I don't play all their games, but you'd never hear of this type of issue with a Nintendo game. No. So take your time and release a product that works. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy that the Switch is still the gaming console. Like, Nintendo loves to stretch those gaming consoles for years and years, but they work and they're good enough to be fun. And why make another one if it's already why fix what's not broken?
Yeah, I mean, between the gaming PCs and the PS5, aside from using the PS5 for like all of our media stuff, I think that as a family we get more game time on our Switch than anything else. It's a phenomenal platform.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Absolutely.
We bought board games to play on the Switch because it's easier than playing the board game. Like,
nice.
And we can play Hot Seat. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent product. And the next one's supposed to be announced here pretty quick.
Pretty quick.
So we'll see. But we don't have to spend all night on this. We just wanted to talk about it because, as we've stated, Square is near and dear to our hearts. And I hate to see them go through this. I wish them the best, but it's just one of those things where it's like you're doing it to yourself, and that's it's just disheartening for me. But we are here.
Let's talk about the last good game that Bethesda.
Oh my god, it's so funny. Oh my god, it's so funny you should say that, because while we were getting ready to record, I'm like, I'm gonna fire up the game and like get a level or two,
get into it.
And then the Bethesda logo came out, and I'm like, oh, I forgot that they made this game.
They published
this. Oops.
They can publish good games.
They can. It's true.
It's possible. I've seen it. Well, yeah, we are here to talk about Doom 2016 soundtrack by none other than the legendary Mick Gordon.
Whew.
And man, this is a ride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's my favorite Quake soundtrack of all time.
Yeah, it's my favorite. Pretty much. But so I guess the question that Mick Gordon had to ask himself before starting this soundtrack was, how do you write a score to hell? How do you make that something that players can listen to and groove to while they are murdering helpless demons? Yeah, I don't know. This soundtrack is a force to be reckoned with. It is written completely by Mick Gordon, and it is just a defining soundtrack. We are here far from the days of Bobby Prince. You know, this Doom is much faster, darker, and much more intense. So a score that captures the madness, the brutality, excitement, and maybe even add a touch of terror, I think it was needed to make this experience sing. And Gordon rose to the occasion to really study and immerse himself in the material to get it right. This is just one of those soundtracks where you have to hear it to really believe it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that Mick Gordon said in interviews after the game came out was that he went into it not wanting to just remake the original soundtracks in like as metal, because like that's kind of corny. Like, he even said that would probably be kind of corny. But he really wanted to make sure that the music was front and center to the game, and I don't think I've had a game that's delivered on that promise more than Doom 2016, and then its sequel, Doom Eternal. Like, they are freaking unbelievable. And oh my god, just literally from the
moment.
Yeah, I know. Literally from the moment you
jump,
boot up, and you're at the menu screen, like, you can already tell that this is a whole different beast. It's incredible. Yeah.
Mike, you said it was a soft relaunch of Doom. I would say this is a very hard relaunch of Doom, because I think
very bloody.
Oh man, they just took the concept of Doom and made it modern. It's tough to think about games like, I mean, Quake 4 wasn't great. They took concept of Quake, and it was just another plotting shooter. It wasn't very fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it could have happened to Doom. You're just going to use this IP. You're going to try to sell some copies based on the name, bish bosh. But they made a game that kind of redefined what a skill-based first-person shooter is like. Yeah. And then the soundtrack goes along with that. It's almost like a rhythm game. With the soundtrack.
Absolutely. And I've got something kind of like that in my notes here, where it's one of those games where you can enter, because of the soundtrack, there's a flow state that comes along with it while you're playing and listening to this beast of a soundtrack. What really threw me is that none of the songs are particularly melodic. The melodies aren't there from traditional songs. So you're hearing stings, you're hearing guitars that come and go, you're hearing a lot of electronica, but it's not like it's a song that you're like, oh, this is my favorite part. Right. This is what this world sounds like, and you enter this flow state with this game, and literally it's one of those games where if you stop moving, you will die. Yeah. So every battle is a puzzle, which is amazing.
Yeah, the music, like there are musical overtones, and there's some songs that have more musical structure than others, but like really the meat and potatoes of it is just, it's organized noise is really what it is. He actually made a quote instrument called the Doom instrument, and it's literally he literally called it the Doom instrument, and it's literally just feeding sine waves, just pure sine waves through a bunch of processors, distortion pedals, analog, like fucking crazy. Like he just messes with sine waves and makes what we hear. And then he just threw some guitar on top, and bing, bang, boom. There we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a version. So like we had talked about the Quake 1 soundtrack, which is very atmospheric. And obviously that was Nine Inch Nails who did that. It's almost that style of music, that kind of atmospheric, but the atmosphere is awful. There's blood, gore, fire everywhere. Like it's not. Yeah. There are horror parts. There are some, terror parts of the game, but for the most part, it's just abject fear and just running for your life through all these demons and monsters and stuff. So I think the soundtrack, like you said, the kind of noise engine that he created really adds that effect, adds that fear.
Like there's not many games that I've played in my life. Usually when you go into the settings and you're fiddling around with stuff, a lot of times you'll turn down the music and you'll turn up the sound effects. And this game is exactly the opposite. Like I turn the music up to the maximum and I bring the sound effects down to 70%. Because
I gotta hear this. The construction of this soundtrack it has aggressive but tastefully used electric guitar, I would say. They're never overbearing. And despite the game looking like a heavy metal paradise, the guitars aren't always the number one instrument, which is something I find really interesting because, like you said, he could have easily just remade the Doom soundtrack and metalized it. And we probably would have been somewhat satisfied with that. But he really just took this opportunity to digitize everything. There's a lot more synth than anything here. And sure, there are nods to Bobby Prince's spectacular album that has, helped the series itself a long time ago. But for the most part, this is 100% Mick Gordon's baby, and this is truly a unique experience.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what he had worked on before this besides Wolfenstein.
He did Wolfenstein, the remakes there.
But to take an IP like Doom and to make it your own like that, and to go so fully down the rabbit hole is pretty amazing. And the fact that the development studio must have been amazing to be with the developers and the music and getting it all tied together, getting the feeling right. It clicks at all levels, and it's a game that is fun to play, fun to listen to. And most of that is, a lot of that is because of the soundtrack.
And one thing I wanted to mention is the main menu, which is really introducing the album. It's a subtle slow descent into hell. It's pretty much what I call it. There's this metallic ping at the beginning of the song, just about like the pin of a grenade is popping off, just to illustrate what we're about to experience here, the explosiveness of this soundtrack. And then it just evolves into this really tense and pulsing synth beat that just grows, and you can feel it shake the room as it happens. It just fades in and out. It's really intense. It's the perfect introduction to this album.
Yeah, I mean the low demonic voice kind of guides you into the game. You're in for a ride. It's so bombastic, like the prophecy and the overarching story that doesn't really matter at all. It's just there to make you feel important.
You gotta at least hand it to them. They tried to make Doom a little deeper than it was, and they succeed. But
some of the storyline stuff is I didn't really need quite that much detail, but
no one needs any. They could have had zero narrative, and I would have been okay with this.
Yeah, for real.
One of the best parts of this album is probably the guitars, in the sense, like I said earlier, they're very sparsely used. They're expertly used. They're not overbearing. What Gordon likes to do on this album is have sudden thundering guitar chords with drums amidst the buzzing synthesizers, like almost machine gun like attacks on your ears during these songs. He uses the drop tune guitars to show off his metal roots in really creative and extremely powerful displays. I would say the guitars and the drums, when they come in with those really powerful stings, almost illustrate Doom Guy's actions as he's ripping through demons. But what's even more interesting to me is that despite the songs not having a real melody, you just are in the zone with these songs. And
in the zone is a good way to put
it. Love it.
I don't know if you've ever needed good workout music, but this is good workout music. Yeah.
I would say Ultraviolence is probably one of my favorite songs for that.
I can just imagine what it would be like to go to a metal show and it be in between songs and then just hear the opening licks of Rip and Tear start playing. I would lose my shit.
I mean, you say I'm just brought up because I remembered it. The Mick Gordon 2016 video game award performance where it was him and Matt from Sonic Mayhem where they did Rip and Tear and then they played the Quake 2. I forget the song, but one of the best songs from the Quake 2 soundtrack. And man, that must be just the best to be in that audience. When he started playing the Quake 2 stuff,
such a good performance.
Chills. Yeah.
Yeah, that performance was literally the thing. I had not played the game. I didn't watch any trailers, and I saw that performance, and I was immediately like, holy shit, what did I not play? Like, I need this immediately.
What did I not play? And it's amazing how that can actually affect us in just one song, really, like a live performance, a random video on YouTube or something. That's how I saw it. But it's like, Jesus Christ, look at the fans are going nuts, and this guy is just having a blast. And these songs are what is assaulting my ears right now?
It was literally like nothing I had ever even heard before. I had totally slept on the Doom remake because like Doom 3 was kind of like not that good, and Doom 4 got canceled because Doom 3 wasn't very good. And then they had a couple little like offshoots, and I was kind of done mentally with the franchise, even though I played Doom 1 and Doom 2. I can still recite the cheat codes for Doom 2, by the way. Yeah, IDQD, IDKFA, and IDSPISPOPD. There you go. By memory.
ID clip.
Yeah, the no clip, exactly. But I had just written them off. I'm like, they're going to try and reboot them. They're not going to be worth the time. I didn't even follow it. And then this performance and that song was what hooked me back in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did need to really decide to come back and like, okay, what made Doom popular? It really wasn't the horror. I can appreciate what they tried to do with Doom 3. Spoiler, I never played it, but I hear it was good. But it was a very different experience. I don't know. I do plan to sit down with it.
It was like Quake, but not good, basically.
It was like Quake 4.
Quake, but not good. And that's fair. That's fair. I will say it did not look like Doom. It didn't feel like this is the same series. But yeah, when I saw the trailer for this game, I was like, this is going to be nuts. And it was obviously inspired by, I don't know if you've heard about this, but a fan mod called Brutal Doom, which is essentially the first two games, but with kill moves pretty much. But I think they took that and made it their own with this game. And it really forced them to see what Doom used to be. How could we bring this into the new era and make it as impactful as the original Doom was for first-person shooters? So kudos to them for being able to pull that off.
Well, you know that they realize that people are still playing Doom 2,
right?
However many years later on multiplayer servers, like constantly, and they just you're going to recreate that, but better and with a better soundtrack.
They're like,
and
people are still playing the first two Dooms, but no one's asking for a remake of the third one. So
imagine that.
Maybe we should do something.
That.
Yeah. I mean, you can't talk about this album without talking about
BFG Division,
which is
man, yes,
my favorite hardcore song on this album. It's just Rip and Tear is great because Rip and Tear is kind of the intro and it gets you started. But I love the synth in BFG Division, the kind of whiny, like minor synth alongside that heavy metal guitar, and you get that breakdown in the middle. It's just a great, another like pump up song. You get the kind of ebbs and flows in this soundtrack where you have these really high highs and kind of mediums, not really many low lows, but you kind of ride along, and then all of a sudden you get BFG Division in the middle of the album that kind of gets you ramped up again. It's just
and that freaking bass drop. Freaking amazing.
It's unbelievable. I mean, we can gush about this album as much as we want to, but I mean, I feel like we're just going to keep saying the same shit. Like, hey, this song is amazing. This part's amazing. And this is one of those albums that is just flawless. And it brings that experience to life in a way that you just really weren't expecting. And you cannot imagine it without it. And that's the power of a really good soundtrack for a video game, especially. It allows you to enjoy the experience fully. And that's what this podcast is all about. And I think Mick Gordon, he's just a power for this game. And it really breaks my heart that they had such a falling out after or during Doom Eternal's production, because this kind of company, along with a musician like Mick Gordon, it's like they were made for each other. They live in this world of, anti-establishment almost. And it's like, how can we make these really off the wall games that are violent and unnecessary and just enjoyable to an extreme that no one really thought was possible? And now they're not really getting along. And that's unfortunate that there's probably not going to be a collaboration with id and Mick Gordon anymore after Doom Eternal, but that's poopy.
Hey, we can always go back and listen to the soundtrack anytime we want, right?
We can always go back. Yeah.
That's it.
And follow Mick wherever he goes. I think he did Atomic Hearts.
Yeah.
One of his latest.
Yeah, he did Atomic Hearts.
Soundtrack.
He did a little bit of stuff in Borderlands 3, as I recall. A little bit.
Did he?
Yeah, just a couple songs.
Yeah. That's awesome, though.
I haven't played Atomic Heart yet, but it looks super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, his score for Doom, according to Wiki, won a number of awards, including the DICE Award for Outstanding Achievement in Original Music Composition, SXSW Gaming Award for Excellence in Musical Score, the Game Awards for Best Music and Sound Design, and was nominated for a BAFTA Games Award for Best Music. So that should tell you all you need to know for the people who really care about award shows. I don't, but whatever. Yeah, the music he composed for this game really captures the intensity and danger.
Yeah.
The erratic battles and haunting locations. As John said, there's not a lot to categorize in the horror or terror department, but a lot of that's mood setting stuff in between battles, which isn't really important, but he still nails that. And then, where the game developers really understood the world and how it looked and acted, I think Gordon, he just understood the complexity of how a world like this, with all the creatures and bloody monuments, would sound. So he took it to his weird brain and came out with this, and I couldn't be happier with it.
Oh, yeah. I'd be really curious on how many copies of Doom sold solely because someone listened to it.
I can count one of them right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got one. We're on a roll.
Yeah. Yeah, of all the songs on the soundtrack, I think, Rip and Tear's great. BFG Division's probably my number one on the soundtrack. But honestly, the one that gives, I don't know, it just grabs me more than any other. It's short and sweet, but it's At Doom's Gate. And it just makes it, it's such a direct tie back to the At Doom's Gate song from the originals. And it just gets me every time. But the distortion on the guitars and so good.
So good.
So good. It really is.
That's classic.
I was going to say, I think that my son might like listening to the soundtrack as much as I do, really loud in the car. And he's that makes me feel like a good parent.
You are a good parent for introducing your son to the soundtrack.
When I first downloaded Doom Eternal, I told him, I'm like, this game might be too gross for you to watch. So like, probably don't hang out in the office while I'm playing. And I kept seeing him like sneaking and like looking. And then the next thing I know, he'd be behind me and he'd be like, ooh, ah, ooh.
What did you just do?
Right. I like, jabbed a blade arm through a Cacodemons eyeball or something like that. Like, popped it out. And then my wife walked in one time and watched us playing. And she's like, what are you playing? That is so gross. I was like, yeah, I know. That's sorry.
But that's why it's so good, honey.
Yeah.
Well, Yeah, we could gush on this for a long time, but I think the audience gets how we feel about it. If you were to rank this, how would you gentlemen like to do that?
I mean,
I think we know the answer, but
yeah, I think that this soundtrack is the first one that really turns it up to 11. So I'm going to have to give this one 11 out of 10 Crucible Blades.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think I have to agree. I think it's 11 out of 10 secret locations found. I think it's amazing.
11 out of 10 super shotguns, because that is the only weapon I choose to use ever.
That was my last question was going to be, what are all y'all's favorite
I
weapons from the series?
use it. I can't not use it. It is my go-to.
Yeah, super shotgun's pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Super shotgun's a strong choice. Plasma
Plasma
gun's my favorite.
Plasma is fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to say that I think because of Doom, the original, I have always been a shotgun guy in first-person shooters. I don't know what it is, but I just gravitate. I'm more at home with up-close combat than say like a sniper rifle. Yeah. But yeah, love it.
There's nothing quite like fighting a spider mastermind, running out of all of your ammo on everything and having like 3 rounds left for your double-barreled shotgun, and then just seeing it.
Yeah.
Nailing it. Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that's the show, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely go out and get this soundtrack, listen to it, show him some love. Mick Gordon, you can buy it on Apple iTunes, and they did come out with a vinyl release for Laced Records, I believe, which I have upstairs, and it's amazing. Yeah, this is
I feel
something...
like playing this on vinyl would just make it skip. Like, does it just...
Well,
does it just vibrate itself so much that it skips? Or...
There's only one way to listen to it, and that is at full blast. So you just got to deal with it. You just got to deal with it for this album.
Sorry for cutting you off. That was, Anyway.
No, you were good. Yeah, if you guys would like to say goodbye, and Jesse, if you would like to pitch your show or plug your show, that would be totally okay.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again for having me. It's funny because, you asked me for a couple of games that I might be interested in, and I put this one on the list, and I was really hoping you'd pick it, and you came through.
I came through. You are welcome, sir.
Yeah. If you're interested in a very niche, very small scale, dorky tabletop war game called Malifaux, give a listen to Boring Conversation, a Malifaux podcast found anywhere your podcatcher can take you.
All right, John, would you like to say goodbye?
Oh yeah.
I guess I'll see you in hell.
See you in hell.
See you in hell.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and subscribe on your podcast app of choice. Also, check out Magus Media's other podcast, This Is Not Happening, Another X-Files podcast, for complete episode breakdowns, insightful banter, and inane babble. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Well, hello there, Internet people. My name is Josh, and I am one of the hosts of the Nastagram RPG podcast. We're an actual play podcast, and we're good. And why are we good? Well, let's let the other host tell you. Dan.
Hey, everyone. If you like authentic, real-world sound effects, our lasers go pew-pew.
I love it. Matt.
Skip me. Coming back to Matt.
Ryan.
Okay, so after 2 decades of trying, we finally mastered the 3.5 grapple. We didn't. Never mind.
Try again.
Scratch
Check
that.
it out. Look it up.
John.
If you're looking for a RPG podcast that plays a whole hell of a lot of games, we like to spice the life.
Spice it up.
Spice it up.
Matt, you ready?
Yeah, I think I'm ready. If you enjoy bad accents and overacting, you'll enjoy our podcast.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
And Jake, bring us home.
I like to just say, we didn't just throw a phone on the table and hit record. Like, Josh does a damn good job with the editing. And
Facts.
if you care about that, you will not be disappointed.
That's right. We spent a bunch of money that we don't make on the podcast.
100%.
So check us out, Nastagram RPG Podcast. You can find us on all the goddamn podcast apps, and we'll see you there.
That's nasty.